Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. According to General Hospital teasers, a final Sonny Corinthos hit could be authorized shortly. Let's talk about all the drama that lies ahead because it might finally be time for Sonny's enigmatic adversary to be exposed. Michael Corinthos was caught in the penthouse explosion intended for Sonny, as GH viewers will remember. Someone has to pay for what happened since Michael was seriously burned and might have died. Of course, if Brick hadn't acted quickly, Sonny might have been completely destroyed at the Los Angeles hospital. That day, another attempt on Sonny was foiled, but the assailant may try again. Moving this Sonny tale along seems like the ideal time now that Michael is back on canvas. Perhaps the authors are ready to ramp up the action here, because Michael undoubtedly wants retribution for the tragedy he experienced. Maybe Sonny's enigmatic adversary will try one final time to remove him when the custody dispute is resolved, to catch the newest hitman or hitwoman and extract some truthful information from them. Sonny may even set up a trap in which he appears to be a sitting duck. In any case, Sonny still needs to identify the powerful person who is trying to get rid of him. Sonny needs to find out who is pursuing him and end this, whether it's Jen Sidwell or someone more startling. Sonny can only start his mob exit strategy and safeguard his family in this way. On this last part of the plot, Michael might even collaborate with Sonny and Jason Morgan. Michael deserves to play a significant role in the future, because he is Sonny's son and an innocent victim. Still, a lot of watchers are eager to see what happens next because Rory Gibson is doing an amazing job as the new Michael Corinthos recast. According to General Hospital teasers, Sonny might soon uncover his enigmatic foe and hold them accountable. Stay tuned for any exciting updates. Drew Kane is officially the most despised character on General Hospital, which is quite a statement. Many people, including some of the most well-liked characters on the canvas, have come to be despised by the audience throughout the years. However, Drew did something that ultimately pushed him over the line after months of playing with the emotions of Port Charles locals and the people that watch them every action. Willow was given an ultimatum by Michael in the Thursday, May 29th episode. She would only be permitted to see Wiley and Amelia in the future if she dumped his uncle Drew. Why? Michael stated that his uncle was a terrible person. And you've become terrible because of him. Many people in the audience could agree with that, and they shared it on social media. But with Drew's next move, even those who stuck behind him probably had to think about giving up their hashtag Team Drillo pom-poms. Because Drew picked up one of Willow's wedding rings and declared they would be keeping them when Willow, determined to support her man, removed them to give them back to Michael. But that wasn't just any ring. It was the one Lila gave to Michael, her great-great-grandson, who put it on Willow's finger when things were much better. Drew, however, was asserting his ownership of the ring and stating that they might eventually give it to Amelia. Many observers noted that Drew seems prepared to forego his own oldest daughter, Scout, in order to give Amelia the ring. It would be an enormous understatement to suggest that supporters were wishing Drew bad luck. Angie posted on our discussion boards, "I need Tracy to fight him to the death for her mama's ring." And Tracy would prevail, as we all know. Willow also received a good deal of abuse, with people yelling at their TVs and urging them to wake up on social media. Hundreds of people called him out, many with facial expressions that would have made the late, adored Lila blush, and wanted to see him punished, but Drew bore the brunt of the hatred. Here's why my enemy busted. Sonny orders one last hit. A rigid code of loyalty, power, and retaliation governs the criminal underground. It's not just another violent act when Sonny, a seasoned and vicious crime leader, orders one last hit. It's a calculated move to get rid of a menace that may bring down his entire empire. Finally, the name of the enigmatic adversary had come to light, and Sonny realized that the only way to maintain his supremacy was to strike quickly. This was a matter of survival, not retaliation. Rumors about an invisible enemy had been circulating within Sonny's inner group for years. Operational leaks occurred. Close colleagues abruptly betrayed the organization, and important officials vanished without explanation. Sonny initially wrote them off as the typical paranoia associated with his profession. However, he saw the threat when law police seized a large cocaine shipment, an operation that only a few of his most devoted guys were aware of. They were good, and someone close to him was working against him. Too good. Fear and accuracy were the foundations of Sonny's empire. He had forged alliances, disposed of competitors, and made sure his organization functioned like a well-oiled machine for decades. However, this adversary was unique. They weren't an ambitious underling attempting to take over or a competing gang leader. This was a person that operated in the shadows, targeting Sonny's operations' weaker spots without ever coming out. For the first time in his life, Sonny felt like the prey in a game of cat and mouse. It was an unexpected breakthrough. Marco, a cold-blooded murderer and one of Sonny's enforcers, had been pursuing a mid-level dealer who had been acting strangely. Rico, the dealer, had been sending odd payments to an offshore account that weren't consistent with his regular business dealings. Rico crumbled more quickly than Marco had anticipated when he brought him in for interrogation. He admitted that he had been providing information to an unidentified benefactor in return for money and safety under threat of torture. Who was the benefactor? Rico was unaware. Payments were untraceable, and all correspondence was encrypted. He was aware of one thing, though. The adversary was watching and listening everywhere. Sonny was enraged. How many other dealers had been penetrated if Rico, a low-level dealer, had been infiltrated? He gave the order to completely purify his organization. Anyone suspected of being disloyal was to be dealt with. However, the leaks persisted even as the bodies started to accumulate. The enemy seemed to be one step ahead of Sonny at all times, waiting for him to do something. Then the last straw appeared. Several senior members were arrested following a raid on one of Sonny's most secure warehouses. The police had detailed information, including the identities of all the people inside as well as the layouts and security codes. They had been handed everything by someone. At that moment, Sonny realized this was more than simply an informant. This traitor had extensive access and had long been a member of his inner group. 3 people were the focus of his suspicions: Tony, his most trusted enforcer; Carla, his mistress and occasional strategist; and Vincent, his long-standing consigliere. Theoretically, each had a motivation, the opportunity, and the means. It was believed that Vincent, who had always been ambitious, disliked being second in command. Despite her claims of allegiance, Sonny was aware that Carla had ties to competing families, and that he should never put his full trust in anyone. Tony had been acting suspiciously, leaving for hours without explanation and getting encrypted messages late at night, despite his unwavering cruelty. Sonny chose to put them to the test. He gave them each a distinct piece of bogus information, such as a manufactured betrayal, a fictitious shipment, or a phony meeting. He waited after that. The police moved on the fictitious meeting spot within days, proving the authenticity of the leak. The details he had provided to Vincent. However, something wasn't quite right. He had spent 20 years with Vincent. He had arranged some of their most vicious takedowns, taken bullets for Sonny, and contributed to the establishment of the empire. Why would he turn at this time? What Sonny discovered when he dug deeper rocked him to his core. He hadn't been betrayed voluntarily by Vincent. By threatening to reveal Vincent's secret family, a wife and child he had concealed even from Sonny, the adversary had blackmailed him. Vincent was forced to make an impossible decision after the enemy played him flawlessly. Sonny now had to make his own difficult decision. He considered Vincent to be a brother, but betrayal was betrayal. Complete allegiance was essential to the organization's survival. Finally, he issued the command. Vincent had been shot once in the head and was discovered in his automobile. Tidy, expert, a last act of kindness for a longtime friend. However, the enemy remained in the field. The person who had deceived Vincent was still twisting threads and tearing apart Sonny's company. Then the last clue came to light. The offshore funds were tracked back to a shell business, which was connected to a former FBI agent named Daniel Mercer, by a forensic accountant who worked for Sonny. Although Mercer had formally left the FBI years ago, it appeared that he had not retired at all. Mercer had dedicated his career to pursuing organized crime. He had gone renegade and was fighting Sonny personally from the shadows using his contacts and knowledge. The game was different now. Sonny wasn't battling an avaricious underling or another gangster. This man had studied Sonny's every move for years, so he knew all the tactics. Mercer desired destruction, not wealth or influence. And he had come very close. One thing, though, worked in Sonny's favor. Mercer had finally raised his hand. The leaks ceased after Vincent left, and Sonny's surviving supporters rallied. Sonny pursued Mercer to a remote safe home in the Highlands using every tool at his disposal, including mercenaries, hackers, and dishonest officials. Killing Mercer wasn't the only goal of the last hit. It had to do with communicating. Nobody could bring down Sonny's empire and survive, not even a former FBI agent with a personal grudge. A group of assassins surrounded the safe home on a chilly, moonless night. There was no major encounter, no bargaining, just harsh efficiency, quick. Upon its conclusion, Sonny was informed that Mercer had passed away. The enigmatic adversary had been exposed. However, the triumph seemed pointless. The organization's confidence had been destroyed, critical activities had been jeopardized, and law enforcement scrutiny had reached an all-time high. Sitting with a drink of whiskey in his darkened office, Sonny came to the realization that this conflict had cost him more than he had expected. Though he understood the truth, rumors of his success would circulate through the streets. Power was short-lived. There were always enemies. There will always be someone else lurking in the shadows, regardless of how many hits he ordered. Although the world of General Hospital is accustomed to shocking turns, Drew Kane's most recent acts have rocked the fanbase like nothing else in recent memory. In a startling change of events, Drew did something so morally repugnant and completely unexpected that, just minutes after the show aired, social media was ablaze with fury. Once supporting him as a hero, fans are now calling for his head. Figuratively, of course, because the character's decisions have gone too far, which many viewers feel is unacceptable. Drew has been presented as one of Port Charles's most honorable characters for many years. A man of integrity, a loving father, and a former Navy SEAL, he has always stood up for justice despite overwhelming circumstances. He was a fan favorite because of his bond with Carly, his commitment to his kids, and his readiness to put others before himself. However, the authors have completely changed the plot in one heartbreaking scene, making Drew the latest villain on the show. The incident took place amid a high-stakes altercation between Michael Corinthos, Drew's long-standing opponent. Business rivalry, personal betrayals, and divergent beliefs have been the main causes of the two parties' simmering tensions for months. But nobody anticipated that Drew would go as far as he did. He purposefully revealed a long-kept secret about Michael that put his family in risk in addition to publicly humiliating him. Even worse, Drew acted without regret, icily defending his behavior as required for the greater good. The consequences were immediate. Facebook, Reddit, and Twitter all erupted in angry responses. Within an hour, hashtags like #DrewIsDeadToMe and #FireDrew went viral as fans expressed their incredulity and rage. The character's abrupt heel turn betrays a lot of seasoned fans, who accuse the writers of sacrificing years of character development for the sake of shock effect. However, some contend that this turn of events creates gripping drama and implies that Drew's darker side has always been present. The timing of this plot is what makes it so contentious. After months of incarceration and mental anguish, Drew has recently been at the heart of a redemption arc, rebuilding his life. His abrupt turn into a villain was all the more startling because his tenacity had been praised by his fans. According to some theories, this might be the start of a longer story that could result in a mental breakdown, or a more thorough examination of his experience. Others worry that it's just a cheesy tactic to get ratings. Cameron Matheson, who plays Drew, hinted in a recent interview that nothing is ever black and white in Port Charles. The actors have remained silent, which has only stoked rumors that there might be more to the story. Perhaps mind control, blackmail, or a complex plot that hasn't been revealed yet. Fans are left to deal with a different Drew till that time for them. One thing is clear as the indignation grows. General Hospital has been successful in generating conversation. It remains to be seen if this turn of events will ultimately succeed or fail miserably. But for the time being, Drew Kane has solidified his position as Port Charles's most despised individual, and the internet won't let him forget it. Few plotlines on General Hospital have sparked as much immediate rage as Drew Kane's recent acts, but the show thrives on drama, treachery, and unexpected turns. Fans are now wondering if forgiveness is even possible, because a figure who was once hailed as a hero crossed a moral line so severely in one heartbreaking moment. The fallout has been dramatic, with social media platforms exploding with fury. think pieces analyzing the character's demise, and intense discussions over whether the writers made a disastrous mistake or a wonderful narrative choice. Sasha Gilmore Corbin's real baby daddy was found by Nina Reeves, and Michael Corinthos was under court order for emergency custody, according to the General Hospital recap for Wednesday, May 28. After Jason Morgan removed Amelia Corinthos from their house, Willow Corinthos and Drew Kane urged Mac Scorpio to get aid at the PCPD. Mac went to Carly Spencer's house with inquiries regarding the entire scenario, even though he knew the kids were with their father. Later, Mac brought the court order Michael received for emergency custody until the June 2 hearing back to Drew and Willow. There was nothing Mac could do because it was all legal and above board. Michael gave Carly, Jason, and Jocelyn Jackson braces back at Carly's house. It was Diane Miller who encouraged Michael to come quickly from Germany and provided him with information on the custody case. Against Drew's desires, Willow finally arrived to Carly's door and confronted Michael. Willow begged Michael not to take her kids away from her, but Michael merely glared at her. Nina visited Maxie Jones at the Brown Dog Bar and expressed concern that Willow's only chance of retaining Amelia and Wiley Corinthos was to leave Drew. Nina was also aware that she might be able to connect with Willow if she opened up about her own intense experiences with Drew. But Maxie recognized that Nina was afraid of ruining what she had created with her daughter. The subject of Sasha Corbin's subpoena for the custody hearing came up. After getting drunk with a stranger and hooking up with him the night before Halloween, Maxie thought back to the story Sasha had first told her. That seemed very specific to Nina, but Maxie assumed it was a hoax because she didn't see why Jason would lie and support Sasha. After Maxie left, Nina asked the bartender a question after things started to make sense for her on Wednesday's GH episode. The bartender had always had a thing for Sasha the deception model, so it wasn't too difficult for him to recall that night when Nina offered him some money and reminded him of it. Additionally, the bartender remembered the $500 tip he got from the man Sasha had a sexual encounter with. The bartender verified that Jason wasn't the man after Nina showed him a picture of him on her phone. Nina was able to corroborate that Michael was the one who couldn't stop touching Sasha and eventually departed with her that evening after she showed her a picture of him. Ned Quartermaine, meantime, blasted Lois Cerullo for failing to inform him about Brooklyn Quartermaine's pregnancy and adoption. Although Olivia Quartermaine also retaliated, Lois pointed out that she had kept Sonny Corinthos in the dark about Dante Falconeri's paternity. Later on, Sonny faced Lois, but he was a little more sympathetic to the circumstance. Despite his disapproval of Lois's approach, Sonny valued the opportunity she provided him to support Giovanni Gio Palmieri financially. Even though Sonny was unaware that he was Joe's grandfather, it was a means for him to be involved in Joe's life. In the end, Sonny gave Lois a hug and offered some consolation during her difficult moment. Gio attempted to outshine Brooklyn and Dante at the Quartermaine home, but they stopped him to give an explanation. Gio questioned what Brooklyn's justification was when Dante made it apparent that he was unaware of her pregnancy. Despite giving up a child, Brooklyn noted that at the time, she was unsure if the child was a boy or a girl. Since Brooklyn abandoned him and never looked for him, Gio continued to feel unwelcome. Emma Scorpio Drake brought Gio to the footbridge after they had departed, so he could take a time to relax and reflect. While they were there, Emma put her hand on Joe's and comforted him. Gio claimed that his violin was the biggest lie of all when Emma questioned why he had broken it. Tracy Quartermaine returned with Dante and Brooklyn and cautioned them to release Gio. Tracy didn't want Dante and Brooklyn to forget that they had met their son tonight, even when feelings were running hot. When Dante questioned Brooklyn in private about her deceit, she maintained that she was just a scared adolescent. The deceit had persisted for too long, and it was too late to come clean once Brooklyn had grown older and wiser. When Harrison Chase showed up to console Brooklyn, he told Dante that he was aware of the pregnancy. Dante asked how Gio had found out the truth and appeared offended by Chase's concealment of that information. Ned entered the room and interrupted Chase's intention to take Brooklyn to bed. According to General Hospital teasers, Brooklyn will speak up to her father about a lot of things, so watch for Ned's reaction. Nina discovers the reality of Sasha's pregnancy, while Lois faces the music. On General Hospital today, Nina has a startling epiphany, Michael has an unpleasant visitor, and Lois is red for filth. When a distraught and disillusioned Gio yells at his parents, Brooklyn is forced to clarify that neither she nor Dante were aware that he was their child. Dante was actually unaware that she had given birth. They try to calm him down, but Gio storms off, Emma chasing after him. Brooklyn is still trying to take it all in, and Dante wants answers. Tracy believes they should have a private conversation, but before they go, she reminds them of the most important thing. They have a son, and he's a very great kid. Chase shows in just as Dante is demanding to know who else knew the secret, claiming that he had learned about the kid a few months prior, but was unaware that it was Gio. Emma tries to assist Gio in processing what he has learnt at the footbridge. He learns that his grandfather is actually Sonny, who funded his education in music. Emma claims that although Sonny might not be to everyone's taste, she has heard from her mother, Robin, that the mafia has a track record of assisting individuals, whether or not they are connected. Ned is incensed and finds it difficult to comprehend why he was not informed about Brooklyn's pregnancy. Lois is aware that he would have been helpful. However, Lois notes that Gio would probably have been a target for the Quartermaines. Lois was able to watch after the child and knew he would grow up in a caring community by giving him to her cousin. A member of that devoted Bensonhurst group shows up seeking her share of Lois as soon as Ned has finished with her. How could she have kept her in the dark about this? Olivia wonders. The hotelier points out that Sonny was dangerous, which doesn't apply to Lois' conduct. Lois compares this to Liv keeping Dante away from Sonny. In the end, Olivia states that she is unsure if she will ever be able to forgive Lois. Speaking of Sonny, he soon shows up and is considerably nicer and softer with Lois despite being obviously troubled by this realization. He notes that Gio might have desired his extended family following Camila's passing, but Lois claimed that the boy's bond with the lady he thought was his mother was so deep that she didn't want to break it. In the end, Sonny discovers that Lois was attempting to establish a bond with his grandson by allowing him to cover the cost of Joe's piano lessons. He's thankful for that. When Michael reunites with his family, he informs Carly, Joss, and Sasha that he knew he had to return home to defend his kids, even if he did forego his therapy early. Mac, who has been dispatched by Drew and Willow to look into Amelia's kidnapping, interrupts their talk. Mac soon returns to the police station to inform Willow and Drew that Michael has been granted custody of the children by a court order until the hearing in early June. In order to speak with Michael, Willow asks Drew to drive her to Carly's place. She correctly points out that Drew's desire to accompany her will only exacerbate the problem. Michael opens the door as she gets closer, and the two of them meet up. Maxie and Nina talk about the impending custody battle over wine at the Brown Dog. Maxie questions whether Nina would go so far as to disclose her personal relationship with Drew in order to remove him from Willow's life. Soon the topic of Sasha and her child comes up. Nina's expression changes when the subject of Jason's protectiveness is brought up. Nina approaches the bartender after Maxie leaves and starts questioning him about the night Sasha, the woman he had a crush on, entered and became wasted. Despite his insistence that he doesn't engage in gossip, the bartender is able to influence him with a generous tip. "That's not the guy Sasha left with," the bartender remarks, pointing to a photo of Jason. However, the bartender affirms that they departed together with their hands all over each other after Nina shows him a photo of Michael. As someone who could read between the lines and notice the small clues that others missed, Nina had always thought of herself as observant. The moment she learned the truth about Michael and Sasha, however, was beyond anything that could have prepared her. Her perception of the past was completely upended by this realization, which also altered her present and left her battling an emotional tempest she wasn't sure how to handle. It had begun with a casual remark, a thoughtless remark made by a mutual acquaintance. Nina initially brushed it off as hearsay, just another rumor in the never-ending cycle of rumors that went around in their social circle. She couldn't deny the nagging sensation that there was more to the narrative, though, because the seed had been sown. Little aspects that had never seemed important before started to catch her attention. Michael's mild tenseness whenever Sasha's name was mentioned in a conversation. When Nina brought up Sasha's child, a toddler with brilliant eyes and a contagious laugh, he had a wary expression on his face. The way he constantly shifted the conversation when it came to fatherhood or parenting, as though the subject matter was a minefield he desperately tried to avoid. She initially convinced herself that she was dreaming. She had never had any reason to suspect Michael. She knew him to be honest, kind, and attentive. However, the more she considered it, the more everything seemed to come together in a way that she was unable to ignore. Then came the day she happened to find the picture. As she occasionally did when she stayed over at Michael's flat, she had started organizing an old drawer. She enjoyed the domesticity of cleaning, the little details of living with someone, and he had never objected to her doing it. However, she discovered a picture that stopped her cold that day, hidden beneath a pile of receipts and misplaced notes. Sasha was holding her infant in the photo, and the child's face was beaming up at the camera. It appeared harmless enough at first, just a tender moment between a mother and her child. However, Nina's attention was drawn to the edge of another figure in the picture, a person standing slightly out of focus with a softly laying hand on the infant's back. There was no mistaking the fingers. There was no denying the watch on the wrist, a present she had given Michael for his birthday. As she gazed at the picture, her mind racing, her breath stuck in her throat. For what duration was he aware? Why hadn't he informed her? And how did they interpret this? That night, she faced him, her voice shaking with a mixture of hurt and rage. He initially disputed it, his expression a mask of bewilderment. However, he changed his attitude from one of remorse and surrender to one of relief when she put the picture in front of him. He started, "It's not what you think," but even he found the words to be vacuous. "Then tell me about it," she insisted. "Because it looks like you've been lying to me the entire time from where I'm standing." After letting out a sigh and stroking his hair, Michael looked directly into her eyes. "It was a long time ago, Sasha and I. An affair. We weren't serious, and we both decided it would be best if I wasn't present when she revealed she was expecting." Nina's stomach twisted. "So you simply left?" With a hint of annoyance in his voice, he stated, "It's more complicated than that. She wanted me to stay out of it. She had plans and a life of her own. I appreciated that. And you never considered telling me?" Nina hardly raised her voice above a whisper. "I've been around Sasha and her child, your child, all this time, and you never said a word." Michael's silence said more than words as he looked down. The days that followed were a haze of disagreements, sobs, and heartbreaking insights. Nina found it difficult to make amends between the man she loved and the one who had withheld such a significant secret from her. She doubted everything, including her own judgment, their connection, and his honesty. Were there more falsehoods? Other things that are missing? When Nina eventually plucked up the nerve to talk to Sasha, she was amazingly composed throughout the entire situation. She said, "I didn't think it was my place to tell you. It was his secret, not mine, to divulge." Nina persisted. "But you knew how close we were. You knew I didn't know." Sasha let out a sigh. "I assumed that by now he would have informed you. I was unaware that he was still hiding it from you." Both Michael's and Sasha's treachery were deeply hurtful. Nina had trusted her and thought of her as a friend. She now questioned whether their friendship had been based on unsaid lies and half-truths. Nina began to distance herself from Michael and Sasha in the weeks that followed. She required time to reflect and process. Every encounter was laced with the weight of what had been kept unsaid for so long, making the casual camaraderie she had formerly shared with them feel forced. Michael made an effort to apologize. He frequently expressed regret and pledged to be completely transparent going forward. If Nina agreed, he even proposed contacting his child and attempting to build a relationship. However, the harm was already done. Once lost, trust was difficult to regain. Nina had lost her sense of what she desired. She still had feelings for Michael and had faith in the future they had planned together. However, another part of them couldn't get rid of the sensation that their foundation was irreparably shattered. What else could he conceal from her, if he could conceal something this significant? The youngster was a living, breathing reminder of the past that Michael had attempted to forget. Was she truly a member of a family that had been founded on such a deep deception? Was she even interested in being? She kept turning the questions over in her mind, and they tormented her, keeping her awake at night. There were no simple solutions or obvious way forward. She only knew that things would never be the same. Ultimately, Nina understood that learning the truth was just the first step. Finding what to do with it and whether her and Michael's love was strong enough to withstand the lies that had come before it were the true challenges.